How did the deployment of the IDEA4RC data space begin?
We started from Work Package 2, where we designed the architecture of the system based on a concept called user story. These user stories, in a sense, described the interaction that this researcher would expect to have with the system in order to complete more efficiently their job. The user story were validated with the clinician belonging to the IDEA4RC consortium. We checked that they met their expectations regarding data sharing for rare cancer research, and were also based on the so-called user journey identified by the TEDAS project, which is, in a sense, paving the way for the European health data regulation, which will make mandatory the sharing of health data across Europe to improve care and to improve research.
How did you proceed from there?
This work produced the so-called architecture of the system, similar to what an architect would do when you design a building to build it. And after that, of course, there is the building, the construction site, that should take the architecture and build up the real building. This is what we are doing now in Work Package 9, following up the deployment of the real system that is being implemented by the partner.
How is this phase of the deployment organized?
There are 4 areas which are, let's say, the major aspects we are addressing at this stage, at this time. The first one concerns the development of the natural language processing tool. Most of the clinical data available, unfortunately, from a technical point of view, are not available in an already structured and machine-accessible way that could be used to build up a predictive model and all this magic that the modern technology can do. It is available, rather it is available on textual reports like pathology reports, like clinical notes from physician, natural language that needs to be analyzed in order to extract the components, the data components that the machine can read. This, of course, is possible with modern technology called natural language processing technologies, and this is what we are doing. The very first step the center needed to do in this case is to provide annotated data, which is an initial step where a pathology report, for instance, is considered by a clinician, and the clinician manually highlights what are the essential data that should be extracted by this report. For instance, the date of diagnosis, the diagnosis itself, the morphology of the tumor, the pathology, the pathology of the tumor, the topography, the position of the tumor in the body. And after this highlighting has been done manually, we give some example of this annotated data, and the machine will learn by itself to understand with new pathology reports in the future. This is essentially the first line. The second line is to ensure that data in each of the 11 centers involved in the IDEA4RC are mapped to a common data model, because every hospital, even if the data are essentially the same, every hospital has its own way to record and to define this data, which may be which are more or less similar, but may have some differences, which make it difficult to collect and to study, to conduct research and studies on the whole set of data coming from different centers. So what is needed in that case? It is needed to define a common model which take into consideration the specificity of each one, and then to map the specific models of each center to a common one, a kind of Esperanto, I would say, that the system uses. So mapping to the common data model defined by IDEA4RC, which is in itself an important task, is the second aspect we should take care of in this work. The third element is the deployment of the real infrastructure. Of course, at the end, IDEA4RC is an information technology infrastructure that should be installed in the premises of each center, at the premises of the IT departments, information technology departments of each centers. So there is also this aspect of going, let's say, to the detail of installing these pieces of software essentially into the centers. And again, each center has its own infrastructure, its own rule to ensure security and such kind of things. So we should adapt our capsule to each, our system, let's say we call it a capsule because it is encapsulating the data of the center, to install it in each of the center, addressing all the peculiarities of each one. The last one is more legal, let's say, in order to share data, the regulation of the enforced in the European Union, both the current one like the GDPR and the future one, like the European Health Data Space that I mentioned before, mandate that data agreements are signed among the hospital providing the data and the researcher using the data in order to agree on the purpose of the research and such kind of things. So we are also, with the support of partner ECCP, targeting, ensuring that all the data agreements are in place and signed.
How did you realize that a work package dedicated to coordinating the deployment was needed?
A project like this, it's a kind of intrinsically interdisciplinary project, because on one side we have technical people developing the technologies that we want to use, the innovative technologies that we want to use in order to improve data sharing and research. And on the other side, there are the clinician, the epidemiologist, the researcher, the medical researcher that will use such data in order to improve knowledge in healthcare. And one of the objectives of WP9 is also ensuring the smooth coordination and a smooth communication among these type of partners, the technical partners in the consortium and the clinical center in the consortium. Not only that, even within a single clinical center, you have the clinician, but you also have, as I mentioned before, the information technology department. And so it is also important in this work to go to each clinical center and access, let's say, not only the clinical knowledge, but also the technical knowledge they have in the IT department, because those are the type of staff that know how to install, for instance, the capsule, the software of the system, how to ensure that the security that we are implementing in the IDEA4RC platform is also translated in security in accessing the data of the hospital, and such kinds of things. We believe that it is important to have in a project complex like IDEA4RC such organization, because from previous project we understood that if this aspect is let's say not considered sufficiently, it will at the end lead to small incomprehension, let's say, so small difficulties in communication that end up to create problems that are unfortunately emerge later on the way, let's say.